Hello and welcome to the program. I am Suren. Question: is there any reality in channeling or mediumistic activities? Can one communicate with one's loved ones after death? Is it possible to communicate with the so-called dead through mediumship or electronic devices perhaps? However, before we come to all that, let us concentrate for a brief moment about the energy of consciousness, virtually surviving the physical death of a human being. As in physics, we consider that energy cannot be eliminated, and therefore the energy of consciousness with all the memories and thought patterns of the human being should survive, be alive and active somewhere else, which we have no idea yet. Scientifically and or even probable ways that we have any idea or knowledge thereof. When we, the consciousness, go out of the coinciding body, we are assumed to be alive somewhere elsewhere. Assuming that this is the truth, that the consciousness after death of the physical demise of the human body should be alive, and if so, it should be able to communicate with us. That is, if we have the means to do so. That is, if we have the chance and possibility of having another human being channeling that energy with us, the so-called living. We also have discovered throughout the centuries that there are many who claim to channel between this world and the other existence. Alas, probably cheating the listener or the person who pays for their services. Cheating with multiple lies and promises only to get paid for. Let us put it all aside and consider that many such channelers or go-between people or mediums and psychics or sensitives were absolutely genuine, and that they could truly prove to us that they are communicating on behalf of us and our loved ones who have passed away, for those who have lived a long time ago, did things to things and lived a good life or not, and now living in that other dimension. By utilizing the word dimension, we do not mean complete disappearance or emptiness. We are in fact talking about a state of consciousness where life around that consciousness is as real as it was, as it is to us, and that they have the full capacity of understanding things and doing things creatively, living a life very similar to ours, if not more advanced. We have discovered that thanks to Raymond Moody and his associates, who had been able to prove that another life in a different dimension exists, and that according to many patients who underwent NDE state of consciousness and discovered that things were very similar to ours, to our dimension, and the way of living but in a better state and condition. By taking this into account, we can now ask the question, can we communicate with them in other dimension or life, the existence if they had the means the same as we have? Today, in our world, there are people with electronic means, believe it or not, claim to have created electronic communication devices similar to a radio or mobiles or cell phones. Having experimented with the same idea for a number of years, I would prefer to think that it would be better to give the same discovery at least 50-50 chance of being possible and real. Unlike and without being disrespectful to them for the great work they undertake, the neuroscientists who would claim that it would be impossible for consciousness to survive after the death of the brain, and which is certainly not proven in absolute terms, and that there are those instances where people can recognize their loved ones having survived by simple information they obtain about them. They are certainly familiar with them and kept their memories alive within their own minds as precious memories. Therefore, we will assume that there are some genuine psychics and transmitters, or even sensitives, as well as the electronic devices, considering what we have already mentioned before. If this is so, and that we have the means to communicate, it would be only logical to conduct further research, leading to more discoveries of the more genuine and the correct kind. Because that would give humanity the means to hope for and understand that life continues in whichever format and in whichever form, with the consciousness we came across as we developed that through our educational and scientific means for eons. In the light of NDE studies, if and when we could combine such considerations in linking this dimension where we happen to be living or those existing in the other dimensions which we came across with, and through the beings who had the experiences of living on earth, claiming that it was to them as physical as we experience it here in our dimension of existence. Let us consider now a few experiences of many other people, excluding what we suspect to be true, but without bias, and opposition to anything that we may discover. Deepak Chopra once said, "Life is experienced in consciousness. Therefore, if we know how consciousness begins, we know how it ends. The opposite is also true." In the encyclopedias that we know of, we discover several terms such as the afterlife or life after death, and it is a proposed existence in which the essential part of an individual's stream of consciousness or identity continues to exist after the death of their physical body. The surviving essential aspect varies between belief systems, and it may be a partial element or the entire soul or the spirit, which carries with it one's personal identity. This continued existence takes place in a spiritual realm in a different dimension, while in others, the individual may be reborn into this world and begins the life cycle over again in a process referred to as reincarnation. In a likely scenario with no memory of what they have done in the past. In this view, such rebirths and deaths may take place over and over again, constantly, until the individual gains entry to a spiritual or the other world. Major views on the afterlife are derived from religion, belief systems, faith, and even metaphysics. Within some belief systems, such as those in the Abrahamic tradition, holding that the dead go to a specific place like paradise or hell after death, as determined by their deeds, based on their actions and beliefs during life. In the systems of reincarnation, such as those of the Indian religions, the nature of the continued existence is determined directly by the actions of the individual in the completed life. In scientific terminology, neuroscientists believe that in mammals and humans, the cerebral cortex is the seat of consciousness. The midbrain's reticular formation and certain thalamic nuclei may provide gating and other important functions of the cortex. According to scientifically unproven concept, consciousness and memories are likely to vanish with physical death, and is necessary also with the clinical death or brain death. However, during an NDE, the patient's experience of the continuity of their consciousness with a possibility of perception outside and above one's lifeless body. Dr. Pim van Lommel explains thus: several theories of the origin of an NDE have been proposed. Something the experience is caused by physiological changes in the brain, such as brain cells dying as a result of cerebral anoxia, possibly also caused by release of endorphins or NMDA receptor block. Other theories encompass the physiological reaction to approaching death, or a combination of such reaction and anoxia. But until now, there was no perspective, no meticulous and scientifically designed study to explain the cause and content of an NDE. All studies had been retrospective and very selective with respect to patients. In retrospective studies, 5 to 30 years can elapse between occurrence of the experience and its investigation, which often prevents accurate assessment of medical, psychological, and pharmacological factors. We wanted to know if there could be a physiological, pharmacological, psychological or demographic explanation why people experience consciousness during a period of clinical death. The definition of clinical death was used for the period of unconsciousness caused by anoxia of the brain due to the arrest of circulation and breathing that happens during ventricular fibrillation in patients with acute myocardial infarction. Another theory holds that NDE might be a changing state of consciousness, transcendence, or the theory of continuity, in which memories, identity, and cognition, with emotion, functioning independently from the unconscious body, and retain the possibility of non-sensory perception. Obviously, consciousness during NDE was experienced independently from the normal body, being linked with waking consciousness. With our current medical and scientific concepts, it seems impossible to explain all aspects of the subjective experiences as reported by patients with an NDE during their period of cardiac arrest, during a transient loss of all functions of the brain. But science, I believe, is continuing with research for explaining new mysteries rather than cataloging all facts and concepts. So, it is a scientific challenge to discuss new hypotheses that could explain the reported interconnectedness with the consciousness of other persons and of deceased relatives, to explain the possibility to experience instantaneously and spontaneously non-locality, a review or a preview of someone's life in a dimension without our conventional body-linked concept of time and space, with our past, our present, and future events existing, and a possibility to have clear consciousness with memories from early childhood, with self-identity, with recognition, and with emotion, and the possibility of perception out and above one's lifeless body. We should conclude, like many others, that quantum mechanical processes could have something critical to do with how consciousness and memories relate with the brain and body during normal daily activities as well as during brain death or clinical death. Now, quantum physics cannot explain the essence of consciousness or the secret of life. But in a concept, it is helpful for understanding the transition between the fields of consciousness in the phase space to be compared with the probability fields as we know from quantum mechanics and the body-linked waking consciousness in the real space. Because these are the two complementary aspects of consciousness. Our whole and undivided consciousness with declarative memories find its origin and stored in this phase space. And cortex only serves as a release station for parts of our consciousness and parts of our memories to be received into our waking consciousness. In this concept, consciousness is not physically rooted. This could be compared with the internet, which does not originate from the computer itself, but is only received by it. Life creates transition from phase space into our manifest real space. According to our hypotheses, life creates the possibility to receive the fields of consciousness, or waves, frequencies, into the working consciousness, which belongs to our physical body, or particles. During life, or existence, our consciousness has an aspect of waves, frequencies, as well as of particles, and there's a permanent interaction between these two aspects of consciousness. This concept is a complementary theory, like both the wave and particle aspects of light, and not a dualistic theory. Okay. There are still more questions than answers. But based on the theoretical aspects of the obviously experienced continuity of our consciousness, we finally should consider the possibility that death, like birth, may well be a mere passing from one state of consciousness to another. Do humans have the ability to communicate with people or other consciousnesses after death? Consider. Mediumship is the practice of part mediating communication between familiar spirits or spirit of the dead and living human beings. Practitioners are known as mediums or spirit mediums. There are different types of mediumship or spirit channeling, as it is known, including seance on tables, trance, or other means. How can one have a conversation with a so-called dead person? This is a good question. Taking this matter into consideration and talking to a person who died is a normal part of the grieving process that can be understood, like seeing them, or you may find yourself taking to them or talking to them because your brain has temporarily forgotten that they have died. You might even talk to them because you miss them and you find it comforting to speak to them out loud. Just think about it. Seeing, hearing, or sensing someone who has died. Let's talk about it. Seeing, hearing, or sensing someone who has died is absolutely normal. Well, this might be scary for some and unsettling, even to you. It does not mean there is anything wrong with you. Some people report sensing the smell or warmth of someone close to them, or just feel a very strong sense of their presence, or perfumes they wear, flowers they loved. Sometimes these feelings can be very powerful. They may be comforting, but also feel disturbing. These experiences are absolutely normal. It usually takes some time for your brain to process what has happened, and for the finality or a bit to sink in. If someone's death was traumatic, you are more likely to see or hear the person or relive those memories. These traumatic recurring memories are recalled flashbacks. I'm sure you know of it. Is it then okay to talk to those dead people? Question mark. Talking to the person who died is also a normal part of the grieving process. There is nothing wrong with this. Although people often tell us they feel like they are getting mad, it is not a sign of mental illness. It may take you some time to understand what has really happened, but you need to give yourself time. The time after someone dies is very stressful. We all know it. Just to make sure you are getting plenty of rest and making time for things that relax you. A deceased loved one cannot physically communicate in the traditional sense after death. Many report experiencing after-death communications, described as a sense of connection or a feeling that the deceased is present. These are common experiences. A study found that after-death communication can be a positive experience, helping to reduce grief and fear of death. Someone who had an after-death communication, or call it ADC, will see, hear, or feel the presence of a deceased friend or relative in their own space. These are unassisted and spontaneous, not all involving psychics, mediums, or therapists. Most commonly, for an ADC to occur on the first 1 or 20 individuals, usually during the first 24 hours after death, the communication experience is one of the comfort, often ending the pain from the loss. The Guggenheims, 1995, described 12 common types of ADCs. Sensing a presence, hearing a voice, feeling a touch, smelling a fragrance, partial appearances, full appearances, ADC visions, twilight, and symbolic ADC. They also report 79 or so % of the cases to occur to individuals who have a close emotional connection to the deceased, sometimes to the dismay of family members. The ATCs occur also to more distant health professionals and or friends, believe it or not. Here is an example for you. Charlene, our hospice nurse, meet her daily visit to Sam to monitor his pain level and his emotional status. He seemed comfortable. Since she had known him, he had been in a hospital bed downstairs in the dining room office in the house, converted bedroom. His wife told Charlene he had finished telling her how to manage the finances in the house, which he had so definitely done all their 43 years of marriage. That evening, Charlene was reading in bed before sleep. The phone rang. The evening hospice nurse called to tell her Sam had died. A feeling of sadness covered Charlene. She reached over to turn out the lights. When Sam appeared at the foot of her bed, he had forgotten to tell his wife about insurance papers he had left in an upstairs bureau. Charlene had not been upstairs in the house, but Sam gave her specific instructions about the location of the bureau and the papers. Charlene assured him the location of the bureau and the papers. Sam then left as quickly as he had arrived. After the funeral, Charlene followed up with a bereavement visit to Sam's wife. She informed her of the visit she had from Sam. Curious, they both went upstairs to the bedroom Sam and his wife had shared. Charlene recognized the bureau from Sam's description and found the insurance papers tucked in a book in the middle drawer. This was from Lawrence, 2014. There have been many studies of ADCs. Of course, the most popular one is described in Charles Dickens' book, A Christmas Carol, when Ebenezer Scrooge is visited by his former partner, Jacob Marley. Recent research describes an incident that has been between 50% to 80% occurring to family members of recently deceased individuals. Rees, 1971, Grimby, 1993 and 1998, Haraldson, 1988. The Guggenheims, 1995, estimate 50 million people in the US alone have had such an experience. Here are some important questions I have been asking all along. 1. How can one prove the reality of communication with those who passed away or living in the humanly unseen realms? 2. Do our loved ones dwell in that region of the universe? According to NDEs, they may be alive there, and we have known for eons that there are people claiming to be channelers or psychic mediums who can talk to or hear them. There are also AI-related or other electronic devices upon which tests have been conducted and trials encountered in which the results appear genuine. In other words, like cell or mobile phones, a communication seems to be possible. 3. As a complete skeptic and unsure, I had only a recent experiment, and some of the words I have listened to and recorded appeared to me as my recently deceased partner. At first, I did not believe, but she mentioned of the name of her sister's son, who had treated her badly. One other issue comes to mind. A woman's voice, reminding me of my first partner, who followed a cultist dictum, and as a result, our marriage ended. Made mention, as previously, with a typical German accent, naming our children one by one and what they are doing right now and currently with their lives, surprising me even more. The program used here has no known pre-recorded voices, words or sentences to start with. That suits me well. And what is heard and recorded, no sounds other than those as if randomly produced words and sentences utilizing whatever electronics or sciences were involved at the time of usage. Imagine creating a phone system whereby communicating between the physical reality, and the surviving consciousness. But this may be only a part of our wishful thinking or process of further discoveries of realities. And so I conducted a few tests, which included specific questions and recorded the responses, and intending to include them here. 1. Can you tell me what my age will be at the end of this year?
83.
Thank you. 2. What is most important now?
Finding.
3. Remember what my ex-wife considered me as?
Evil.
Answer, even, of course. 4. What is the difference between your and our frequency now? Answer is low frequency? Question mark.
You take low frequency.
5. Those pens, those guys, need something. You mentioned something like Turkina. A male voice spoke. How old do you think I look? I asked. And how do you know? He says 40. You will listen to it.
40. Put your hand. All you. Septosalio. Me. Husab. In. Racer. That's a lot of.
Ansage. Me and Hader. Right on it.
A woman speaks faster, or like Weber. A male comes and speaks, says weakly, put your hand, hold, be, that's not. Another male says, hey, plain, it has right on it. A woman comes along, that is our story, isn't it? We'll say, an enigma.
A story.
Our story? Or just a story?
Our.
Okay. No, do you remember who introduced me to this program first?
Steve. Us two. And say. Iliti Abigma.
Prat. Friend.
there. Feddo's bands on most guys. Attest to have. Tarkita. No. Say it. Free.
Our own. It was Kurdish.
Turkish.
How for it?
And draw. In our royalty.
A woman continues. That is, what's up? Our own, this was Turkish. Fanto comes to Andrew, the royalty, speaks. And then another voice says, Dad, for me to see, I miss you. Right, Gage? Last 3 years or so. A woman speaks. I did well. Yes, you did, my dear, but I still don't know who you are. Then comes another male. I asked for the row. All that. Aye, we were settled where you are now, in Australia. It says Tannery, and it be, and a male speaks. Yet, and Akiko or Akito. Holden, then, your surname. Ah, yes, past new. Were around, was my new name. Female speaks with an accent. Oh, gentle lady, you again. I too have cried a lot. I'm so sorry that you're crying still. You will have to say no more assets. Later, she says, you know, you like a fun word. Out for you. You're fun. Someone wants to steal everything from you. Ending with male voice. Ready, boss? And lots of credit to you. All you are blessed. We will see you again, for sure. With that fun time, I will end this session, and we will meet you again by the next episode. Until then, smile and be happy. Thank you.